Hey guys, welcome back to Talking Jit. On today's episode, we've got great friend and ex ish MMA fighter Donald Lipscomb.
X.
Yeah, X. Oh, okay, X. Donald Lipscomb. We have the UFC event coming up here, and as you know, I like to cover them. Donald is an X, right?
XX, yeah.
Ex MMA fighter from I mean, you and I started together, and then you went on to places like Jackson Wink, and didn't you do a fight with them or for them?
I fought. I had 2 fights for them. I was on their roster, and I was trying to go pro with them, but sometimes the fight game is a little bit more challenging in ways that aren't seen early in the career. So I didn't ever get to
It's
make a pro debut. So I fought amateur for them.
it's
And
fucking the fight game is brutal, bro. We should do a whole episode on just that.
yeah, it'll be a fun one.
Just how much is behind it and how much it takes and how much bullshit you actually have to deal
Yeah,
with. When you know the background of like fighting and like what goes on behind the scenes, like it makes it even that much more amazing of like the guys at the upper ranks that they can just like handle all that and still perform, you know?
yeah, for sure. And it's definitely like you said. It's something that could be. Just sharing my one story and my thoughts on it, I think it could go a whole episode easily. So, yeah, that's
Clickbait, you guys.
yeah, yeah.
This no, we'll actually have to roll with that one pretty soon here. I'm actually getting the live, all like the gear, like where I can meet up with people and actually
Oh,
like
dude,
sit
that would be
across from
sick.
them.
Yeah,
So maybe you could be one of my first live ones.
no, dude,
Ooh.
I would love that.
But yeah. So we got this UFC 295 coming up. Main event is Sean Strickland, Dricus Du Plessis. Kind of a wonky card in my opinion. You and I were just talking about that. It's like you never know. I mean, sometimes it's the cards
Yeah,
like this that are fucking amazing, but like on paper, kind of like for a pay-per-view event, man, I agree with you 100%. It's kind of like, you know, it
yeah.
doesn't really draw you in. you know?
No, no, really. I would say the main event, the Sean Strickland, Dricus Du Plessis, is the is the one that I really want to see on it. And there's other fights that I'll watch because they are kind of like you said, they're somewhat worth watching, but they're not. There's not any other, I would say, stars on the card
Right.
that other than those two.
That are a huge draw, at least.
Yeah,
You know what I
or
mean?
even like up and comers. You got the women's bantamweight title bout because Amanda Nunes vacated that title, and she's pretty much been dominating it forever. So
Is that the Raquel Pennington?
yeah, and Myra Silva, and they're both fighters, but they've been around a long time, and we've seen them fight. And I don't know if both of them fought Amanda Nunes. I think they both did, and they both lost. And so I guess they're the next two contenders, but that division is kind of up for grabs for a new exciting female fighter to come in. But I don't think either of them, even if they get the title, I don't think they're going to be like a dominant champion for a long time. So, but I'm sure we'll probably get into that more, right?
Yeah, of course. Before we can look to the future, sometimes we might have to visit the past.
Yeah.
So I got
Yeah.
to ask you how you feel about the last UFC event.
The
That was a
last
shit
one.
show, kind of.
Yeah. It was I watched the whole thing, and I don't know. What do you think? What were some of the main takeaways?
So I thought it was a good event, all around. I just think that the Kobe Covington, you know, his marketing didn't go so well.
Yeah.
He definitely oversold that fight, and I think a lot of people have a bad taste in their mouth from it. The one thing I did get from it that I don't think a lot of people did is I watched like a lot of like the interviews and stuff after the fight,
Yeah.
and he broke his foot like in the first round or
Yeah.
his leg or whatever with a kick. So that does explain a lot of why it took him so long to get moving. and
For sure.
and get to it. I do think if that fight went another couple rounds, it might have started going in Kobe's favor because he started seeming to get momentum on it. But I don't think
Yeah.
it was a great performance by Leon, and I don't think it was an exciting performance by Kobe either.
I think the factor with Leon is that he did want to beat him in the wrestling game,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that was more of kind of like a pride thing or ego, however, like not in a bad way. Like I want to prove that I can beat this guy in all areas. And
Just after how emotional he was, you think?
yeah, I think he did a honestly, I think he did a really good job of reeling in his emotions after like I lost a lot of respect for Colby. I'm not like a big I don't hate Colby. I'm not a huge fan of him one way or another. I do think he moves the needle,
Mm-hmm.
but I think that was pretty classless of that tactic for a guy like Leon Edwards, who doesn't really
Like bother anybody.
no, he doesn't bother anybody. He's a pretty respectful fighter. Like Colby, I think could have taken the approach of like, all right, I'm just gonna go out there and fight this guy, but instead he decided to take it all the way up to 11 and
I think,
say things he said.
yeah, I think he could have definitely marketed it without doing that.
Yeah,
But what's
yeah,
your outlook on this? I don't know if you heard, but like Kobe's defense, he said that he does not feel bad about it. Leon Edwards' dad was a scumbag, and the guy sold prostitutes and hurt people and was not a good person.
yeah.
And
Well,
he actually doubled down on it and said that, like, in his opinion, like that guy like took advantage of several women's lives and he hurt people and was a murderer, and like he doesn't feel bad at all about talking shit about his dad. Now, does that give you the right to bring it up? I mean, how do you look at that? That's
so here's what I would say. Like I look at Colby Covington's past track record, and the dude got kicked out of college like for the first 4 years after he got into college. He got kicked out. He blew DUIs, driving drunk, potentially putting other people's lives at risk
right.
for his actions. He's kind of everywhere he's gone. He's hasn't been able to fit in anywhere because he kind of has that brash personality that even though it's an act, it kind of seems like he's a genuine douchebag. So, I mean, he can sit there and say all those things, but when he got on the mic at the end and he's like, I want to give a shout out to the first responders and the heroes and this and that. It's like I feel like that's just straight marketing and not genuine at all. Like, was Leon Edwards' dad a scumbag? Maybe, probably. But who is he to sit there and be the judge of who that guy was and the life that he lived? I
Right.
don't know. That's my thought because we can sit here and poke holes in the way that any one of us have lived our lives. So I don't know. Maybe that's a little more deep of an answer
Right.
than. But I think Colby Covington has a pretty long track record that he should probably not be trying to be the judge of everybody
Of
else.
character and stuff and morals.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
I don't think I personally would bring that up. I think I would
No.
find another way to market it. Like you
Yeah.
said, Leon himself seems pretty like docile and like, quiet. He's not
Yeah.
usually, he doesn't seem like the type to come out and talk shit. It seems
I
like
mean,
he
dude,
pisses off a lot of people somehow, but whatever.
well, I mean, he at the end of the day, let's just look at it this way too. Let's look at it completely differently. Despite Leon's dad being who he was in all those other areas, he's still the father of a UFC champion that pulled himself up from his bootstraps and
Yeah.
became the UFC champion. So there is that,
Right.
So he was obviously an important figure in Leon's life too, up until he died. So I mean, like I said, maybe he was shitty in some areas of his life, but maybe he was a great dad. Um, like I don't know. We could
Good
spin this
point. Yeah.
a lot of ways, um, and I'm not one to try to judge another person's character. We don't know.
I brought
Yeah,
it up just because, not only because it's interesting, and I don't think like a lot of people saw like Kobe's side of it,
yeah,
and I don't know if a lot of people need to even see Kobe's side of it, but it'll probably kind of roll into what we talk about at the main event here because, again,
yeah,
it seems like we're hitting these trends, and I don't really like them. of like just taking like deep jabs and digs at people, and kind of like seems like everyone's trying to it's one thing that's getting kind of old to me. It's kind of turning everything into WWE or like ironically WWE after they acquired WWE, but like
Go figure.
but yeah, everyone's like kind of just like kind of pushing the needle. Like back in the George St. Pierre, Matt Hughes, BJ
Yeah.
Penn days, you didn't see this shit. People just came out and
No.
fought. Chuck Liddell, like you would see people who didn't like each other, like Vanderlei Silva and Rampage, but like it was never like this. It was always just strictly fighting. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah,
And
and that's comes from, Chael Sonnen came in and he put on the WWE act and did it in a pretty classy way. And
right.
then Conor McGregor, and I don't think Conor McGregor was necessarily following Chael's act. I think that's genuinely who he was.
And I think
But
it
you
just
even
worked and he built on it too. Like
yeah, and he crossed a lot of lines that probably I mean, I don't know. Maybe people are seeing the fact that he was the highest paid athlete in whatever that was 2019, and we made all that money, and he still created a company and did all those things. Maybe they're thinking like, oh, maybe I can be the next Conor McGregor and line my pockets if I
right. And he did it
I
so
don't
big and at such a big
yeah
scale that people probably think that like that's the only way they can do it
yeah
is by like I guess overstepping, like kind of
yeah
like that unspoken sacred, like you don't bring family and this and
yeah
that into things. And I think people are starting to say, well, I can't do it as good as Connor did it, or I can't do it the same way because it won't sell twice like that. So I
yeah
have to do it louder or bigger, or I have to piss more people off. And maybe that's why it's going that way.
yeah. And I mean, I look at the probably the guy who I think is my favorite champ right now, Alexander Volkanovski.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't do any of that. He moves the needle, and he's probably one of the more respectful
Very
fighters.
classy.
Yeah, and so like yeah, he doesn't move the needle like Conor McGregor, but he's just being himself, and maybe that's what maybe
Mm-hmm.
that's what these fighters and in a lot of ways, I do think Sean Strickland is kind of just being himself. He doesn't necessarily seem like the words coming out of his mouth or kind of like I said, where Colby Covington's getting on the mic and like, I want to thank the first responders and the heroes of our country and this and that. I'm like, that just seems like a country song trying to sell. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
oh, let
like
me
he's trying
write
to
this
keep.
number one hit. Yeah, on
He
the
found his
country
target
station.
market or something.
Yeah, exactly. So, um, yeah, that's my thought on him and Dracus he seems respectful. People made a bigger deal out of what he said to Israel Adesanya, and I think took it out of context. He's been nothing but a pretty classy guy,
Right.
um, and I think the beef that they're creating between each other, I think that is to move the needle. I mean,
You think it's
fighting.
fabricated?
I think like to a point, whether they genuinely don't like each other. I don't know. Maybe they don't, but like
I mean, putting
even
them like one row away from each other,
yeah, dude, that's exactly what I thought. I was like that,
that
and
has to
then
be planned.
putting who did they put Sean Strickland on the big screen, and then having Dracus right behind him. Like that's that I don't know. That seemed a little choreographed from the UFC. Like what did they expect to happen, other than that? And Sean Strickland, I read somewhere that he asked Gilbert Burns' family to please step out of the way because he was going to fight him. So
Yeah, right before he jumped over, he turned
right
around
before
and
he jumped over, he's like,
he
like,
he turned around and he asked him to scoot over, and then he just stepped on the chair and hopped over. It's kind of funny.
yeah, yeah. So
Yeah, man. I
that's
mean, I don't know if this is the new WWE way of selling. To me, I'm like, I kind of thought like, well, the UFC like took over WWE. They Who's to say like their marketing team isn't back there? Like, all right, well, WWE sells off of fake beef. Why don't we get in this market? You know?
yeah, it's very possible. I mean, I think as long as the fights stay real, that this tactic could work, but that having shitty actors like Colby Covington isn't going to help their cause.
No, he kind of lost me. Like,
Yeah,
I
same.
lost. Like, I was getting a little bit hyped on him, and then he kind of like, personally to me, he lost it.
Yeah,
But let's get
yeah.
started with. Have you this card like Arnold Allen versus?
Yeah.
So do you,
Evolov.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's Evolov's one of those guys.
Undefeated, 17-0.
Yeah, there's a lot of hype behind him, and he's shown good performances. Arnold Allen has, to me, has a proven track record though. He's beaten some pretty tough guys. I'm trying to think. He lost to Max Holloway. That was his last loss, but he beat Calvin Kattar, Dan Hooker, Gilbert Melendez. So he's beaten some pretty tough talent. And the main one being Dan Hooker. Not that Calvin Kattar is not world class, but he knocked Dan Hooker out in one round.
With a kick?
I think it was a punch. I can't. I'm remembering it being a punch. I think he dropped
Hooker,
him.
KO, TKO. Yeah, it doesn't say.
But and then he went and lost to Max Holloway, like most everybody does, besides Volk and Evolov. The thing I do remember about him, was that guy Diego Lopez. He was on. Actually, we talked about him on the last time we did the fight prediction, and I said Diego Lopez is an up and comer, but he fought Diego Lopez and Diego Lopez came in on like a 1 week notice for his first fight in the UFC, and he barely beat him. So I think that there could be. Personally, I think there could be a little bit more hype on the Evolov. I'm probably saying his name wrong. Then I think it could be more hype than actually what he could end up being. I think the fact that he's like one of these stoic Russians that's just coming in there and kind of mowing everybody down.
Mm-hmm.
But he's only has decision wins. He only has decision wins in the UFC. So I think that's something to consider.
If I remember correctly, Arnold Allen showed good heart through that whole Holloway fight too, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. He never gave up on
himself. He was never completely out of the fight either, was he?
Not at all. And so I think that's something to take into consideration as well. The fact that Arnold Allen has finished a lot of fights. He TKO'd. Well, the Calvin Kattar fight was a weird knee injury. So that one doesn't count that much, but he's gotten, since he's been in the UFC, he's won decisions, but he's also got a lot of finishes, whereas Evolov's only got decision wins. So that's something that maybe if he fights a guy who's gonna be there the whole fight, but also has ability to finish him in multiple ways, I think he could struggle with Arnold Allen. So I'm gonna go with Arnold Allen on that one. Just for that reason. That's something about this card is it's actually really hard. They did a good job of matching them up pretty evenly. So but I'm gonna go with Arnold Allen as like a small favorite.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Arnold Allen as well. I don't know why. I think the dude's got nasty kicks, and for some reason, my bold prediction. Every now and then, I throw a bold prediction in the mix.
Yeah,
I'm gonna say TKO.
Yeah, and he is the underdog, slight underdog, but yeah, TKO. That's probably. I mean, I think that's probably a pretty good prediction. That or a guillotine.
Ooh.
I think he's got a good guillotine, and Evolov likes to wrestle, but he showed against.
Leave that neck out there, boy.
And when he showed against that Diego Lopez guys that he does not have the best submission defense, because his knee practically got ripped off of his body in a knee bar, and he just kind of gutted it out and just decided not to tap. But the fact that he was in so many submissions over and over again against a guy who, like I said, took the fight on 1 week notice. So if Arnold Allen's got a full camp, him and his team could potentially see some holes that he could find that guillotine that he's pulled off a few times.
Okay.
So, yeah,
I feel you on that. I feel you. Next we have Chris Curtis, Marc Andre. I'm always messing up the French names, bro. Burial.
Yeah, that sounds right. We could just call him Mark.
Marc Andre.
Yeah. Mark Andre. There we go. I think we will both get that one right. And that's another one that Chris Curtis, when he came in the UFC, he seemed like he was going to be a future, like he is in the top 15, but he seemed like he was going to keep winning. And then he lost a couple times, and so he's won one, lost one. He lost to Kelvin Gastelum, who's kind of just been on and off for the last 5 years. He lost to Jack Hermanson, who's a killer, but he did beat Rodolfo Vieira and Brendan Allen, and Joaquin Buckley. So he's beaten some pretty stout competition. I think that this should actually be a pretty easy fight for Chris Curtis. Just he's a way more polished striker. Mark Andre is kind of just an aggressive, in your face fighter.
Right.
Yeah, he likes to strike. He likes to get into brawls and kind of throw punches until he drops or the other guy drops. Whereas Chris Curtis is kind of in and out of the pocket. Really hard to take Chris Curtis down. So I don't think that this is. I think of all the fights on the card, I think that Chris Curtis is probably going to be your biggest favorite. If I were to be betting, I would probably say Chris Curtis would be my biggest favorite on the card, just for that reason, because I think he's way more polished.
Yeah, I'm sitting here with thinking about it. I think if Chris Curtis can stay disciplined, I think he'll land the shot in the flurries and stuff like that. I think he has a really good chance of rocking them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But sometimes I feel like Chris Curtis comes in there not disciplined and just kind of like showboats a little bit.
For sure. Yeah, and that's where he's. I don't think he's gonna get drawn into that, but if he does, I think that's where he could have a disadvantage in this fight, because Mark Andre does have knockout power. He has pretty serious knockout power. But I think that if Chris Curtis is in and out of the pocket, he's the shorter fighter, so he's going to have to control the range with either being all the way in or all the way out. So I think he does it, and I think that if Mark Andre does, I don't think he's going to have a chance to take Chris Curtis down. I don't think Chris Curtis is going to try to take him down. I've never really seen him really try to be a ground and pound.
Mm-hmm.
When he usually tries to finish the fight on the feet. So I think that's what he's gonna try to do, and I think he'll be successful just with that in and out of the pocket style, and then catching him whenever he comes in for the throwing those wild punches.
Okay. Yeah.
And he does, like I said, Mark does have he does have a pretty serious overhand, so that's why I think that Chris Curtis is going to be able to land those shots, just because that does sometimes leave you open whenever you're leading with that.
Do you think Chris Curtis gets like a boost because he's fighting with his boy Sean?
Maybe.
Like, I think to start the show. Do you think there's anything to that?
I think that's a really good point. They've been in the same training camp this whole time. They've probably been sparring all the rounds together, and realistically, he's probably going 10 rounds with the champ every day. I don't know how much they spar with each other, but he's putting in a lot of rounds.
And also mentally, there's just a good hype to your boy's energy. Fighting tonight. Like, it just kind of makes you excited rather than nervous. Sure. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You're warming up together. You're going to the stadium together. All that stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a really good point.
And if Chris wins, I bet that gives Sean a boost.
Yeah, I think so. Like
whenever you see your boys win in competition, like, you always get like that little like extra adrenaline. I feel like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, because they're from the same team, so the coaches are going to be feeling good. It's just going to bring good energy and going into that, and especially Sean has so much momentum. So I think that's a really good point. I bet that camp is feeling good right now after bringing a belt home. So now they get to go into the next fight, because I don't think Chris Curtis has fought since Sean won the belt. So
yeah, for sure. All right, rolling into Neil Magny versus Mike. Is it Mallet or Malay?
Malay probably. He's Canadian, so
Yeah. You know how like the UFC always does that, bro? It's like
yeah,
I feel like they switched the names up. Like Jose Aldo was Jose forever, and then Jose out of
Jose,
nowhere.
yeah,
And then Habib was Habib, and then it was Khabib out of nowhere.
yeah,
So like they do that with so many freaking names that like sometimes I don't even know how to like what to say. Like
yeah. No, I just try to say it in English because I think that's where 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 at first they'll try to say it. They'll either try to say it in the like Jose. They'll try to say Jose, and then they'll just be like, you know what, we're gonna say that J in English, and we're gonna start calling him Jose.
Jose, and then out of nowhere, Jose Aldo that I've been rooting for since WEC is Jose Aldo.
Yeah.
Now I'm an asshole out of nowhere.
Yeah. Well, maybe Jose, maybe Jose decided that, hey, like I want to be Jose. Like I'm done being Jose.
Yeah, or like one guy says it Jose one day, and then everyone's like, "Oh shit, I had it wrong."
Yeah.
They never even ask.
Or maybe it's just the Mandela effect, and it's actually been Jose the whole time, and we
Alex
just remember.
Pereira is Alex, and then they're
Alex.
like, "Fuck it, we'll just call him Potan." Like,
Yeah, perfect.
they,
We
there's
can all
so
say that. Yeah,
there's so many of them.
yeah. But yeah, the Neil Magny, Mike. I'm just gonna say it completely wrong. Mike Mallet. Mike Mallet. Because that's how it's spelled. He
10-1-1.
yeah, he's the heavy favorite over Neil Magny. Maybe that's just because Neil Magny did not perform very well against what's his nuts? The dude whose wife just sold a book on how to
that fucking clown.
Yeah.
Ian Gary, bro. I was
Ian
a
Gary,
fan
yeah.
of him too. And now he's
Yeah.
kind of lost me as well.
Yeah, but Neil Magny looked horrible against Ian Gary, but so far Neil Magny's kind of looked bad against the top tier guys, but then he's beaten everybody else. So Neil Magny's definitely like a gatekeeper for the welterweight division. He's still in the top 15, and if you look at it, really the only loss that he has to like somebody who's not a former champ or like a title contender was Michael Chiesa. He lost Shavkat Rachmanov, who just showed his stuff on the last card. He lost to Gilbert Burns and he lost to Ian Gary, but he's beaten a lot of really good guys in his career. So I don't think that he should be the underdog the way that he is. Maybe I'm missing something with this Mike Mallet guy. Like he doesn't seem he seems like a really kick heavy fighter, and against somebody who's 6'3", like that's probably the only way he's going to be able to hit him is by throwing kicks. But if he's throwing kicks in Neil Magny's punching range, that's not going to go very well for him, which he kind of seems to do. He kind of seems to kick in punching range. So if Neil Magny can capitalize on that, we know Neil Magny's not going to get tired, and he's pretty hard to take down. So
I felt like I feel like Magny against Ian Gary, like I feel like he didn't utilize his reach as well. I mean, I know Ian Gary is also very lengthy.
yeah.
But I just feel like I don't know. There was something off in that fight.
Something was off that fight for sure. Like I don't know. Everybody has an off night here and there, and I don't think that Neil Magny fought as good as he is in that fight. So I think that's probably why he's the underdog. But I think if Neil Magny fights the way he does normally, or has normally in the past leading up to that, I think that he absolutely wins this fight. It's a close one though. Once again, it's a hard one to call because Mike Mallet has a lot of momentum coming into it. Being he's 10-1-1. He trains at Alpha Male.
Yeah, was Uriah Faber.
Yeah, so he has a really good team. And so far, I mean, he's only got 3 fights in the UFC. So, and one of them was against Mickey Gall, who I don't know, isn't really a UFC fighter. So he's pretty green. I think that unless I'm missing something, I don't think he should be the favorite, but that's my thoughts on it. And
So you're taking Neil?
I'm taking Neil Magny on this one. But it's like I said, if Neil Magny, if he's on the downhill, like if that fight with Ian Gary was a glimpse into him entering into his downhill spiral,
Yeah.
but it's hard to know that because until he loses this fight, I could very easily chop that one up to a just a bad night against Ian Gary. So yeah,
I'm going
gonna go with Neil Magny.
with Mike.
Yeah.
I'm going with Magny's just kind of gatekeeping, and he's going to be that 50-50 fight from here on out. That's the way I don't really have too much reasoning. That's just where my intuition lies.
Yeah, and like I said, this card all around is pretty hard to call because there's a lot of these fights that are even all the way up to the main event are all could very easily go either way. There's not a heavy favorite. I think he's the biggest favorite on the card as of right now, Mike Malott. So you might be onto something. I'm going to stick with my gut on it. The Neil Magny had an off night, and that he's beaten everybody but the top guys, and I think he's going to do it again. He's Mike Mallott's from Canada. Like they don't. I'm saying that just because they don't have a super high level wrestling in Canada, unless he I don't know.
Do you know who he trains with?
He trains with Uriah Faber, Alpha Male. So
he doesn't train in Canada. Okay.
No, but it's the guys who are able to out wrestle Neil Magny are the ones who have that good been wrestling since they were a little kid type background. And Mike Malott might have that. I don't know enough about him. I don't know. Maybe he was on the Canadian national team or something, and he did wrestle at a high level. But just going off of him being from Canada, and him being very green in the UFC, and his wins are from submission in the UFC. But I mean, I don't know. It's a tough one because I don't know. I don't know. He only has 2 fights. He has 3 fights in the UFC. And
he already made your pick, bro. You can't go back anyway.
Oh no, I'm sticking with that. I'm just kind of going back to why I think the Neil Magny, and I think they're hyping this guy up too much. So
gotcha.
Yeah.
I mean, there's something to say about the veteran, and someone who's been in 3 rounds, 5 rounds, and someone who's just like coming through and got a bunch of momentum. Then you hit somebody who can actually like handle the momentum or redirect the energy.
Yeah.
There's something to say about that. It happens. Seems like it happens a lot. You get these guys who got a lot of momentum in the UFC, and then they go against a veteran,
a real veteran who's been 5 rounds and doesn't get tired,
right?
And is still there. So yeah, Neil Magny, that's my pick.
All right. This one, I'm like 50-50 on. Yeah,
I have no idea on this
Raquel
one.
Pennington and Mayra Bueno Silva.
Myra Bueno Silva. Yeah.
10-2-1, 15-9-0.
Yeah. Yeah, I think for this one I'm gonna go with Myra Bueno Silva.
I've been wrong every time I've picked Raquel.
Yeah. She hasn't delivered. And Myra Bueno Silva, she fought Holly Holm in her last fight and choked her out. She wasn't looking super special up until that point.
Mm-hmm.
And then it got considered a no contest. I guess she had a tainted supplement or something because they're still giving her a fight a few months later. But I'm gonna go with Myra Buena Silva because I don't know, Raquel Pennington, kind of like you said, she's been in the game for a long time, and she's on a big winning streak right now. But I don't know. I don't have a kind of like the last one. I don't have a really good reason why I think that I think that yes, Bueno Silva's just on a little bit more. She seems a little bit hotter on
It's
the way she's been fighting lately.
for me, every time I've been hyped with Raquel, I've seen her lose. And then
Yeah,
every time I've been like, this lady sucks, she's done very well. Um,
yeah,
she's like an ex Ultimate Fighter, right? That's where she came
yeah,
from. I feel like
yeah,
those people do so well. I don't know.
yeah,
It's like so weird how people come out of the Ultimate Fighter and just like they all do really well.
yeah,
I saw Myra in like the crowd just recently,
yeah.
and like I've kind of seen some promo of her, and she seems ready. Like she seems like she wants the
Yeah.
belt.
Hungry right now,
She
that's for
seems
sure.
like she understands like the opportunity, and she seems like she's gonna go for it.
Yeah,
Um, on a like technical fighting level, I couldn't tell you between the two, man. Like
yeah,
I
and
know that's what I'm supposed to do,
that's
but
well, with that's the hard part about this women's bantamweight division right now is there's so many there's not that dominant champion that there was for so long, and it's hard to see maybe somebody's going to get the belt and get that and just get that streak, but I don't see anybody. I mean, Holly Holm, who's like 45 years old, she's still beating the majority of the girls in this division.
yeah,
And I don't know. That says something to me. That there's and she was like I said, she was beating Myra Silva up until the point where she got guillotined. Raquel Pennington, I actually saw that fight live when she fought Holly Holm,
mm-hmm.
and Holly Holm just literally pinned her up against the cage, and she couldn't move uh, for the whole 3 rounds. So that was I don't know. Maybe that's why I'm leaning towards Silva,
Mm-hmm.
just for that reason. Maybe I think that she's going to be the stronger fighter, and that the cage work is, she guillotined Holly Holm whenever Holly Holm tried to do the same thing that she did to Raquel Pennington. MMA math doesn't always work
Right.
like that, but I think that Bueno Silva is a little bit more of an aggressive striker. She has knockouts, but she also has a lot of submissions. So she has 1 knockout. So let me correct that statement.
real backing a little bit.
Yeah.
I'm going Myra.
Cool. Yeah, same here.
I wish I had like a better explanation because I know that's what I'm supposed to do, but
Yeah.
I don't
Well,
really have much.
neither one of them. Yeah.
I feel
Neither
like
one
she
of
could
them
get
are
the
knockout
submission, and
artists. Yeah.
yeah,
Exactly. Yeah. So
I don't know why I just picture her getting a submission easier, and she seems tough enough to take some punches,
yeah.
and she seems ready enough
Yeah.
to
Exactly.
put
She
it.
seems like that whatever it is, that championship desire, a little bit more than Raquel Pennington, and I think that goes in this situation. So yeah, I'm with you there,
Dude. We've made it all the way
main event. Here we go
to the main event.
Yeah.
And before we do, I'd like to go over my new sponsor. No, I'm just kidding. Sean Strickland versus DDP.
Yeah, let's go.
So we talked about a little bit of it earlier. You don't think let's get into a little bit of the drama first.
Yeah.
Him saying that, do you think he's just trying to cut and win the fight mentally before anything?
I think so. I think that it's more of those head games that are going on. I think Dricus isn't really phased by any of that though. And that's kind of where I'm at with it.
Is it marketing? Is it real? Or is it like him just trying to get the mental edge in your opinion?
I think it's more him trying to get the mental edge. I don't think Sean Strickland's necessarily that thought out to the point where he's trying to market it for himself. I think he's just trying to get the mental edge, and I think he could just be being himself. And I think that Dricus is just kind of there once again, just kind of being himself. So I think that the fight in the arena was the one thing that maybe was, I don't want to say choreographed, but was a little bit sus.
Mm-hmm.
But other than that, I think everything else seems pretty organic. I think that both of these guys were very exciting fighters. I think that it's easy to forget that Sean Strickland has been in the UFC for almost 10 years, and he's now the champ. Dricus is undefeated in the UFC. That's another one to throw out there. He's dominated everybody. And
so many questions about this fight.
Yeah, well, I honestly, dude, I think that Dricus is gonna manhandle Sean Strickland.
Welcome.
I think he's gonna get a hold of him and just be the bigger fighter. Kind of the same thing that he did to Robert Whitaker and just bully him.
Right.
He beat Derek Brunson, he beat Darren Till, he beat Brad Tavares. He's beaten all these big, strong middleweights. And Sean Strickland, I think, was a perfect matchup to beat Israel Adesanya, which is crazy. He's been beaten by Jared Cannonier, split decision, and I think that Jared Cannonier is one of those big, strong, physical middleweights. That's why I'm going with Dricus. Just for that reason, I think the physicality, and nobody's beat him still. So, in the UFC,
has he looked like impressive to you, or like did he look like he like kind of snuck out a couple wins?
It's weird. His fighting style is weird. Like,
I know, I can't.
Yeah, so it seems like he just goes in there and wins in odd fashions, but he's got a ton of stoppages. He wins decisions, so he's shows that he has a gas tank. But he goes in there, and that would be where I would say that Sean Strickland could have the advantage is Sean Strickland doesn't get tired. But and that's where the odds, like the betting odds kind of thing. Like if it goes 5 rounds, I'm picking Sean Strickland. But if Dricus can get a hold of him, I think he could finish him in 2 rounds. I think he could finish him in 2 rounds the same way that he finished Robert Whitaker in 2 rounds.
Yeah, you definitely would think, like, by looking at him and like seeing his card, especially if you judge off Whitaker.
Yeah.
That, like, I don't know, like you would just see that like it's not even a contest.
Yeah.
But then again, it's like Sean Strickland, I've noticed in a lot of fights, and this is just me giving him like the fair assessment in my head.
Yeah.
But I've noticed in a lot of his fights, like, has he gone against like the biggest names or done well against such big names? No. But the fights he's won, it's almost seemed like he's been getting his ass beat or outclassed. And then for some reason, as the fight goes, he gains momentum and starts like, I don't know if people get frustrated because they can't figure it out, or if like what they did is not working. And like Sean's like punches and little like, movements are adding up, like that pressure builds.
Yeah, sure.
And I don't know if Du Plessis comes in and like finds himself like not as effective as he was against Whitaker, or like, you know what I mean, and starts getting frustrated.
Sure, absolutely. And that's the thing, is Sean Strickland is the man right now, and he until Dricus comes in there and proves that he's better, like Sean Strickland's going to have a lot of confidence. So that confidence could be the factor. This is a close fight. This is a hard one to call. I'm just looking at the fact that, I don't know, it was a long time ago that he fought Kamaru Usman, but Kamaru Usman dominated him bad. And that was he dominated Sean Strickland when Sean Strickland was a welterweight.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, it was back before Kamaru Usman was even the champ. It was when he was fighting on the
Black Aliens.
Yeah. And And that's something I think about, the fact that Sean Strickland was a welterweight at one point and got manhandled by another welterweight, like a huge middleweight that probably hasn't been able to make welterweight since he was 15. Like he's just the bigger man, and he's very physical. So, yeah, I'm gonna go with Dricus on this one.
Okay.
It should be a good fight though. Like,
I'm trying to
fast,
give Sean a little bit more of an edge. He is a black belt, and he does promise he has good wrestling, even though you don't see much of it at all. But there could be that secret underlying factor. But
yeah, and I'm not counting him out. This is a hard one to call. So
okay, I can't. Yeah. I was trying to curve your decision because I'm taking Dricus too.
Yeah.
But I guess we have a tiebreaker on the Neil Magny and Mike Mallet fight. That would be like our tiebreaker.
Yeah.
Because we have all the same picks for this one.
Yeah.
Unless you want to roll back to the Brad Katona Garrett Armfield fight, but that would just be a shot.
Brad Katona.
What'd you say, Brad Katona?
I say Brad Katona. If we want to go back, let's go.
Damn it,
I'll go Charles Jourdain on the next one, and then
just throwing darts.
Yeah. No, I think Charles. Yeah, but yeah, either way.
Let me get a bold prediction from you, at least from one of these. Like, so I've got you marked down for who you think will win.
Yeah.
But let me get a bold prediction. My bold prediction was the TKO out of Arnold Allen.
Yeah.
You got a bold.
Yeah, I'll say my bold prediction is Dricus Du Plessis by TKO in the second round. Ooh, that's a bold prediction. Just, that's I would win some money if I actually probably I bet on that in Vegas, but
yeah, and I owe you an apology. I guess you got I don't know why on the last one I was talking shit and said you didn't get any right.
No, it's all good. The one that I got wrong, that even on the show, that I missed Mackenzie Dern and Matt Frivola, and I couldn't bet against Matt Frivola because he's my boy, and I knew that was a really hard fight for him. But other than that, I was pretty spot on, even with the way the victories happened. But
you were pretty spot on. I told you I would apologize.
Yeah, it's all
publicly. Good, my bad, guys. Yeah, my bad.
I'm not. I don't have my feelings hurt. Well, I don't publicly have my feelings hurt.
Yeah, in the sauna later, it's a different story.
Yeah. Well, I'll break down a little bit there. But
we all do it, man. But hey, man, thanks for doing this. Guys, thanks for listening. Feel free to come up and let me know. Anywhere this is posted, there will be a comment section. So if you disagree or you want to tell us who the fuck's really gonna win or how they're gonna win, throw your bold predictions on down there and let me see it.
Awesome.
And thanks for doing it, Don. We should I miss you, dude. I miss you, man.
Dude, things are crazy. It's wrestling season right now. Wrestling is the busiest. Yeah. It's the busiest season of the year for me. So
yeah, that's when shit gets serious.
Wrestling is also my favorite season. But man, all right, bro. I'll talk with you soon.
All right, dude.
Bye, everyone.
See you. I think the podcast is fucking sick. If you're listening to it and you're like, I don't know if I want to listen to the next episode of this podcast, you're probably a bitch ass. You need to listen to the next episode of this podcast and keep listening to it. Because my friends down here are trying to make shit happen. And we're going to make some shit happen.